By now, I'm sure you've heard the good news. The CDC has updated its mask guidelines, and if you are fully vaccinated, you do not need to wear a mask in most settings. There are some exceptions, and private businesses can still ban you because they're private businesses, but hey, good news across the board, right? Apparently not, because we are seeing a weird phenomenon now where some Democrats are saying they won't take their masks off. Some are saying they're scared people will think they're conservatives. Others are complaining there's no way to know who is vaccinated and who isn't. And it's resulting in anger and conflict. In this story, Eric Swalwell, Democrat, gets in the face of a Republican staffer, a staffer for Marjorie Taylor Greene, because the staffer said you don't have to wear a mask anymore, and Swalwell was, and then yelled at him, "Don't tell me what to effing do," which is just weird. Then he goes on Twitter and says, "Don't bully people who are wearing masks," and this whole thing is just downright weird to me. The other day, I referenced a Matt Taibbi article where the opening paragraph said that you've got one side claiming science is doctrine, be all end all, and the other side saying, I don't trust the other side. And it's just downright confusing and tribalist. Okay, there are a lot of Trump supporters and conservatives who are saying like they'll never wear a mask. And my attitude's always been like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, stores make me wear a shirt. I don't mind putting a mask on. It's not that big of a deal. I mind my own business otherwise and keep to myself, go shopping, and then I'll go home. But you've got people on the left there now saying I guess they want a signal. They want a virtue signal to their tribe that they're part of the tribe, and they're scared that people will think they're conservatives or something instead of just minding your own business and doing what the CDC recommends. Look, if I see a Democrat walking around and they're wearing a mask, I don't care. If I see a conservative walking around and they're not wearing a mask, I honestly don't care. But this shows the whole fight is more about tribalism than anything else. Because I think regular people, for the most part, are just minding their business and going, okay. I show up to a store and the sign says wear a mask. I go, okay. I show up to a store and there's no sign. Whatever. Now it's weird. It really is weird because you've got Rachel Maddow going on her show and saying, I'm going to have to figure out how to rewire my brain. What are you talking about? You're not wearing a mask on your show. We had SNL with Elon Musk. Remember this? Elon Musk and all of the SNL cast members are not wearing any masks. And then the show ends and they're all wearing masks. Y'all are confusing to regular people. So I put it this way. Here's the CDC guidelines. You can follow them if you'd like. Joe Biden told people to get vaccinated or keep wearing a mask. Well, follow your local regulations in your states. If they have mask mandates, just follow whatever local ordinances are available. And when it comes to the vaccine, talk to your doctor. I really do think all of these stories show just how insane the political sphere is. Democrats now ignoring CDC guidelines and blue states ignore. I'm confused by the whole thing. But let me no longer waste words. Let me show you this story, talk about what happened, and show you many of the tweets from these people who are saying that they're going to keep wearing masks now, even though the CDC says you don't have to. Okay, whatever. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com and become a member by clicking the members only button. You can sign up with Stripe or PayPal, then go to the members area and get access to exclusive members only segments. We set this website up so we can do more content, expand, but also, as you may know, Steven Crowder just got a second hard strike. The purge is very real, and it's possible they ban my channel at some point. It's possible that I get in trouble for talking about masks like this because you never know why they're going to ban somebody. Steven Crowder got a strike because he talked about CDC guidelines, and that's what I'm doing right now. If you like my work, now more than ever, you should become a member to help support the work that I'm doing so I can expand, we can do more. And in the event that I get banned, this is where you'll find my content. But don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and really share it. Take the link, post it places, because that's the biggest thing you can do. Greatly appreciated. Let's just read the story now and get into the news. SF Gates says, quote, "Don't tell me what to effing do. Eric Swalwell, Marjorie Taylor Greene staffer tussle over masks." They say fresh off a report that Georgia Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene aggressively confronted Ocasio-Cortez, it seems one of her staffers got into it with Bay Area Rep. Eric Swalwell. On Friday morning, The Hill's Scott Wong reported that Swalwell and Greene spokesperson Nick Dyer got into a verbal altercation over the use of masks following the Thursday CDC guidance that vaccinated individuals do not need to cover their faces. Biden says you can take off your mask, Dyer reportedly told Swalwell. To which the congressman replied, "You don't tell me what to effing do." Swalwell later confirmed the altercation happened and that he cussed out Dyer. He tweeted, "I had a mask on as I stepped off the floor. An aide with Marjorie Taylor Greene yelled at me to take my mask off. No one should be bullied for wearing a mask. So I told the bully what I thought of his order. Predictably, he went speechless. I regret I wasn't more explicit." Eric Swalwell is lying because a reporter was there and the staffer said, Biden says you can take your mask off. That's what the reporter who was there said. Swalwell now acting like he was being bullied. No, Swalwell's just like kind of a nasty dude. Remember that one time he farted on camera? Despite the new CDC guidance, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has opted not to lift the House mask mandate, citing the fact that it's unclear how many lawmakers have been vaccinated. Republicans have criticized Pelosi's decision, noting that per CDC guidelines, the unvaccinated pose little risk to those who have been vaccinated. As I covered in an earlier segment, Bill Maher recently tested positive for COVID, but he's fully vaccinated and he's asymptomatic. They still shut his show down. The point of the vaccine is that if you get COVID, you will not get sick. That's the point. I don't understand what Nancy Pelosi's policy is for, if that's the case, because people who are vaccinated won't get sick. That's what they're saying. No, I think what Nancy Pelosi is doing, it's tribal. Democrats don't want to take off their masks because they're worried people will see them as conservative. Interestingly, we have from Scott Wong, reporter. He said MTG's spokesman Nick Dyer told Swalwell Biden says you can take your mask off. Just to reiterate real quick that Swalwell was lying. But let me show you this tweet from David Hogg. David Hogg, as most of you know, is famous as a gun control activist, tweeted, "I feel the need to continue wearing my mask outside even though I'm fully vaccinated because the inconvenience of having to wear a mask is more than worth it to have people not think I'm a conservative and then cringe face or whatever that face is. I don't know." He says, "I feel like this is something you can especially understand if you're in a very liberal area where 99% of the people you are seeing are wearing masks. I don't live in whatever area he's in, I guess. So I'm confused by this. I genuinely believe regular people view the culture war people as literally insane people. You look to a lot of the Trump supporters and the more conspiracy oriented folks, and yeah, they're going to be viewed as crazy by a lot of people. I'm seeing these videos of people putting magnets on their arms. This is so stupid. They're obviously just parlor tricks and hoaxing you. One lady put a magnet on her arm and it sticks, and then she flips it over and she puts it on her arm, but it sticks to her finger. Why? Because she probably put adhesive on one side. I don't know. I just think it's dumb to think that you're going to get a shot of mostly, it's whatever's in the vaccine. It's not magnetic. These videos are fake. Dude, just talk to your doctor about what's right for you and don't get your advice from TV people and people on the internet or from people like David Hogg, who's not a medical expert. Now, to be fair, he's giving his political opinion. He's allowed to do it. He doesn't want people thinking he's a conservative. You're quite literally saying that you just want to virtue signal so that everyone thinks that you're a Democrat. Me, I don't think about these things when I go out. When I go to the store, I get out of my car and I'm walking up to the Walmart and there's a sign wear a mask. And I'm I put a mask on. I also got to wear pants. I'm not that concerned about it. And I don't think most people are. It is kind of strange. Check this one out. From Katie S. Fang, she says, "So how does one tell the difference between a fully vaccinated person and a not vaccinated person?" Well, good question. You don't. It doesn't matter. I mean, the CDC is saying people who are vaccinated don't have to wear masks. I don't know what a business is going to do. A bunch of states have banned vaccine passports, so maybe you just mind your own business. If you're vaccinated, you should be fine as per CDC guidelines. I don't understand why you're making a big issue out of it. Well, here we go. Jill Filipovich says, or Filipovic, "Vaccine passports or QR codes now. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your right. But it's not your right to go to a concert, bar, restaurant, or large event. Should there be health exceptions? Yes. Should there be religious exceptions? No. Sorry. Believe what you want. Don't get vaxxed if you don't want to, but you are not actually entitled to see Celine Dion live." Well, this tweet from Jill Filipovich has earned herself a place on Siraj Hashmi's list. If you're not familiar with the list, Siraj keeps a list of people who should have their phones taken away after they tweet stupid things. So he's nominated her for the list. Note, Jill's tweet is authoritarian and it's backwards. The idea is if you want to get vaccinated, talk to your doctor, figure out what makes sense and go and do it and leave people's private healthcare decisions to themselves. You shouldn't make people carry passports. I'm not a fan of that stuff. And many states have already banned it. I think if you want to get vaccinated, you should talk to your doctor and you should be protected. She does make an interesting point, though. And I'm sorry, I am a bit more libertarian. She says it is not your right to go to a concert, bar, restaurant, or large event. If a private business wants you to be vaccinated, then I think it's within their right to have certain guidelines. But it is challenging, right? Because I don't know if you can actually assert that because of the 14th Amendment, equality under the law. Perhaps wearing a mask is fine. But asking someone about their private details or to produce a medical record, that's where things get into the ADA territory, the Americans with Disabilities Act. I don't think you have a right as a business to discriminate against someone based on a medical condition. And then I don't think it's actually the business has a right to inquire as to your medical history, which could be challenging. But you got to think about this beyond the culture war right now. If we were dealing with if we weren't in the vaccination phase, right, of these things, if people had like a very, very seriously contagious ailment like Ebola, we'd probably want businesses to take this very seriously. The issue is, while COVID is much more serious than, say, the flu, it's not Ebola. And so I think there's one of the things that separates the tribes in this one is how concerned they are about getting sick or transmitting it to others. I think conservatives, being typically the party of individualism and personal responsibility, are like, well, if I get sick, I get sick. And the left are more collectivist, which is why they're saying they don't want to take their masks off. I don't think people are taking it as seriously as you would something like Ebola. I think if it was something like airborne Ebola, people would lock the businesses down and be absolutely in favor of these things. So this is where I think people start drawing the line in terms of policy and what businesses can and can't do. Ultimately, I'll just back off a little bit and say, I don't know, man. I think it's people's private business. I think the vaccines keep you safe and you should follow the CDC guidelines. And if you don't like living in the cities, get out of the cities. Just don't bring your bad policies. Don't bring policies from the cities to where you're moving to. Now, let me show you some non-verified Twitter users, right? So I showed you some blue checks talking about how they don't want to be seen as conservative. But here we have just a regular Twitter user with only 15 retweets. But she said, I'd rather wear a mask for another year than risk being mistaken for a Republican. Okay, I guess you're entitled to do so. We then have this tweet from another user with 229 retweets. Now, this individual has about 40,000 followers, but is not verified. She says, the CDC has created a scenario in which fully vaccinated people who continue wearing their masks will be treated as unvaccinated, while unvaccinated anti-maskers will be treated like they're fully vaccinated. But why is that any of your concern? You will be fine. Your friends, your family, you will be fine. I think what we're seeing a lot of is that people are just tribalist, that they want people to know that they're a Democrat, and now they're confused because they don't know how to show that off. If they wear the mask, people will think they didn't get a vaccine and then not think they're a Democrat. If they take the mask off, then people will not know if they still can't tell if they've been vaccinated. One person responded saying, maybe, but their plan is transparent. The anti-vaxxers are probably anti-maskers as well. Holding out non-masking as a reward just might get them to the pharmacy. One person said, I see a win-win here. Vaccinated people will be immune to the virus, yet many infect those who refuse to get vaccinated, thus ensuring that those idiots will either have to protect themselves by vaccination or succumb to a virus. Well, listen, that's entirely the point, right? Like, it's personal choice and responsibility. Now that the CDC guidelines are out, you can choose to do what you want to do. And if you are someone who is taking it seriously, you should be fine. Y'all need to calm down. Regular people are carrying on with their lives. It ain't that big a deal. Fox News reports MSNBC's Rachel Maddow on new CDC guidelines. Need to rewire myself to not see unmasked people as a threat. This is the kind of stuff that freaks me out. I've never viewed masked or unmasked people as a threat. I've never freaked out. I've washed my hands like crazy. Don't get me wrong. Over the past year, I've been washing my hands all the time. taking it seriously. I don't want to get sick. I don't want anyone else to get sick. I wear a mask when I go to the store. I'm out in the middle of nowhere where they've lifted the outdoor. I believe they've lifted the outdoor mask mandates for the most part, and they've announced they're easing a bunch of other restrictions as well. Texas and Florida have already done it. So I just keep to myself and mind my own business. It's kind of crazy that people actually feel this way. MSNBC says, following months of criticism, the CDC announced that vaccinated people could ditch their masks. Rachel Maddow, she made her statement. They say they could ditch their masks. While met with relief and calls like it's about time from Ted Cruz, some liberal figures fretted. Quote, I feel like I'm going to have to rewire myself so that when I see someone out in the world who's not wearing a mask, I don't instantly think you are a threat, Maddow said, or you are selfish, or you are a COVID denier. And you definitely haven't been vaccinated. I mean, we're going to have to rewire the way that we look at each other. Not where I'm at. Because like you go outside and you see some people with masks, some people without. You go to certain shops and some people wear it and some people don't, because they don't have strict mask mandates and guidelines in most of these places. And I just stick to myself and wash my hands. I think people would be wise to do that anyway. Earlier, Maddow interviewed CDC Director Rochelle Walensky about the new mask guidelines, asking her, how sure are you? Because this is a really big change. Walensky assured her the agency was sure and touted the extraordinary amount of evidence showing the efficacy of vaccines. MSNBC contributor Noah Rothman shared Maddow's clip, calling it remarkable artifact of our times. The patient's message is a good one, but I live just over the river where over half the adult population has been vaccinated for a long time. You're just now coming around to the idea that someone without a mask may be responsible, and only because a federal agency said as much. It's a really good point. The CDC has come under fire from even liberal outlets like CNN and the New York Times for its messaging and guidance on the virus, such as its misleading statistic that less than 10% of transmissions came outdoors. The true number was less than 1%. Maddow's remarks came after CBS anchor Gayle King remarked Thursday that she has felt judged in New York for not wearing a mask outdoors despite being fully vaccinated. Research has shown, regardless of mask wearing, that outdoor transmission of the virus is extremely rare. Maddow's fellow host, MSNBC host Joy Reid, said last month she was too scared to ditch her masks and would wear two while jogging in the park to guard against backdraft from other joggers. Now we see this from USA Today. They say the CDC says we can take off our masks, and they actually wrote an article explaining to people how to ease your transition back into the, quote, real world. This is nuts. All right. Experts say it's important to acknowledge your stress during this transition. It's normal to feel nervous. Once people accept this, they begin to take small steps towards reintegration with these tips. Remember, it's normal to feel stressed when being social again. Really? Prioritize who to hang out with first. Designate time for self-care. No, it's okay to simply decline invitations. This is really weird to me. This is from, this is updated May 10th. And it says, many of us are allowed to take off our masks. Why some of us don't want to. This scares me. It scares me that we are in a nation of people who aren't mature enough to just take care of themselves and be responsible. And they're terrified. This says to me that it says to me it's tribal, that I've stated, but the CDC gave the guidelines in the first place. Most of us followed these guidelines and didn't care. A lot of people didn't want to wear masks or get vaccinated, whatever. But now the CDC is saying it's fine, and people are still acting. And now the left, the Democratic faction, are at odds with the CDC, which I just don't quite understand. I mean, I guess I do. It's tribalism, right? The Atlantic writes, no one actually knows if you're vaccinated. Vaccination requirements in stores, offices, and schools can offer peace of mind, but they're rarely going to prove anything. If you can't get past this, I don't know how you function in society other than staying home and working remotely, which, hey, you're entitled to do so long as you can support yourself. They say, if you have been fortunate enough to receive a COVID-19 vaccine, you also possess an essential high-tech tool for proving your immunity to others. Just kidding. It's a piece of card stock. On the flimsy rectangle that all Americans get with their shots, doctors and pharmacists record dates of administration, vaccine type, and lot number. Some scrawl the information by hand with a pen. Others apply a pre-printed sticker. The cards offer no special marker to prove their authenticity. no scannable code to connect to a digital record, and 3 by 4 inches. They're even too awkwardly sized to fit in a wallet. A mid-century polio vaccine card doesn't look too different from today's COVID vaccine records. Distributed by the CDC, to those administering the vaccines, these cards are supposed to help recipients get the correct second dose, if needed, and offer a personal record. Jason Schwartz, a Yale public health professor, told me. But they've taken on a considerably grander importance as pandemic restrictions have eased in the U.S., especially now that the CDC has okayed vaccinated people going maskless, because of the only thing available to all Americans that show someone has been vaccinated. When you get a COVID-19 shot, the information goes into a digital record kept by the state where it was administered. And that's the end of the road. The CDC does not hold records of individual vaccinations, and the White House has indicated that it has no plans for a federal database. This setup has made things complicated for businesses, employers, universities, restaurants, concert halls, airlines, and other institutions that want to verify people's vaccination status as the country reopens. It's easy to say that customers, employees, or students need to be vaccinated, but it's much more difficult to check that someone really is. A few states have created or promised more technical vaccine passport systems, usually smartphone apps connected to the state databases, that could confirm people have been vaccinated against COVID. But many Republican-led states, including Texas, Florida, and Arizona, have opposed or even banned the implementation of any sort of vaccine verification system, mostly citing government overreach. Let me just say, there is likely no way you are going to be able to prove this. It was never going to be that we would just lock everything down permanently. It's about time that those in cities, people like Eric Swalwell and David Hogg and Rachel Maddow, just calm down and go back to normal living. Because there's nothing else you're going to be able to do about it. You can't. I mean, I suppose they'll call for, vaccine passports. WUSA 9 says, here's how to prove you're vaccinated. Verify has everything you need to know about the little card that proves your status. That's right. When you get your vaccine, they give you a card. And then when you finish your second dose, it's filled out. And there you go. The FBI has said people who use the government seal to forge these things will be committing a crime, but not everyone's going to carry them around. And I also think it's kind of intrusive to even ask people for them. Perhaps you should just take solace in the fact that if you're vaccinated, you are safe. I mean, that was the point of the vaccine, right? I think the media is responsible for a lot of this stuff. I think they've driven a lot of these leftists off the rails and freaked them out. And I think a lot of them just want a virtue signal. It's a problem. You can't have a functioning society of people who aren't capable of, the emotional maturity of living in a dangerous society. It will never be 100% safe. In this story from Becker's Hospital Review, they say 18 states with bans, limitations, and green lights. So here's a list of these states, all right? They say Arizona issued an executive order banning passports. California is not pursuing any vaccine passports. Connecticut hasn't issued any guidance. They're still up in the air. Florida signed an executive order prohibiting vaccine passports. In Georgia, Brian Kemp tweeted opposition to any kind of vaccine passport. On Hawaii, they said the state is testing tech needed to support a vaccine passport. Idaho also banned. In Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, the governor, said he thinks a vaccination app would be useful but should not be mandatory. In Iowa, they've pledged the state will oppose passports. Louisiana has not decided. Montana said that they are prohibiting passports. Nebraska will not have passports. North Carolina says they are ending. Actually, I think I have the tweet from North Carolina. They are effective immediately as of 1:30 p.m. today, lifting all mandatory capacity and gathering limits and most mandatory mask requirements. So that's it. They're not going to require a passport. Let's see. I think we also have more. Pennsylvania may introduce a legislation that would ban passports. That's Pennsylvania. Tennessee said they oppose it. Texas opposes it. Utah said that they will block it. So across the board, it's likely not going to happen. You're going to have to just accept this, Democrats. Life will be returning to some kind of normal very soon. In fact, the National Review published an op-ed saying the pandemic has ended based on CDC numbers, in their opinion, and with the mask mandates now being ended for those that are vaccinated, this is it. It was always going to happen, wasn't it? I know a lot of people said that a lot of people were saying the masks were going to be permanent. I'm not entirely convinced. I don't think so. I know Democrats want it to be, but I just don't think it's going to be reasonable. And here we are. Interestingly, the Daily Mail reports Can we ditch masks or not? Mixed messages as Jill Biden wears one to D.C. event a day after Joe said vaccinated can lose them, and Cuomo and Newsom say they'll ignore CDC advice. The states are kind of breaking apart, aren't they? We're seeing that Texas and Florida and many other states lifted their lockdowns or never locked down in the first place. Joe Biden has told people what you can or can't do, but the blue states are ignoring him. Not all of them, but many of them. And red states ignored him from the get-go. It really does seem like we're on the verge of some kind of breaking apart, I guess. I don't know. Democrats believe wildly different things. They are tribalistic, and I guess that's just kind of segregating them from the right, who views them as liars or doesn't trust them. And that shows you that, I guess, the culture war is an untenable situation. I don't see how we bring factions back together when they're this bitterly divided. When Cuomo and Newsom say they're going to ignore the advice and the red states have already ignored the CDC guidelines, at what point do we recognize that the states are just not in alignment anymore? For the longest time in the U.S., it seems like there's been a ongoing civil war every 4 years for control of the federal government to impose their will on other states. Maybe we should knock that off. The problem is there's no border security between states. Here's what happens. In California, they are a sanctuary state, they say, and they incentivize illegal immigration. They say they'll offer health care to those who are 26 or under with free health care. Thus, they'll get more illegal immigration. These immigrants, undocumented, authorized, illegal, whatever you want to call them, can then easily cross into any other state, which creates a problem for those other states if they oppose it on policy grounds or principle grounds, whatever. California, fine, you're entitled to do what you want, but that doesn't mean that Arizona has to be beholden to the results of what you're doing. Maybe Arizona then needs border security, but that's nuts because you can't do it, right? Well, here's what happens. In California, then the census happens and they get more congressional seats because of illegal immigrants who are living in the state, which gives them more electoral college power. I think even the Heritage Foundation says it's only one more vote, but that's significant. One electoral college vote, it still matters when we're talking about 538. So now you have federal government, federal policy being changed because some states have rules that change the federal system. But they certainly there are other states that don't agree with that, in which case we're coming to a point where we're all fighting for control of the federal government to make the other states do what we want them to do. The left complains that a very small amount of the population, like 16%, is disproportionately represented in the Senate. Well, if y'all got a problem with it, maybe there needs to be some kind of peaceful divorce, as many have stated. Because if the Democrats want to keep wearing masks and the CDC at the federal level says you don't have to, and they're still going to implement these things, well, I think they should be allowed to. And I don't think they should be able to dictate what West Virginia, Texas, Florida, or Montana is doing. But that's what's happening, isn't it? The federal system makes very little sense as we keep centralizing more and more power in the federal government. It makes no sense for the people who live in New York to pass laws in West Virginia. You don't want guns in New York? Fine. I don't care. I don't live there. All right. I understand there's a constitution supposed to protect our rights, but fine. I don't live there. But this is not what's happening. What's happening now is the states are being subjected to ways of living they don't want to be. How can you have people in New York City defying the CDC? What happens when they go and vote in Congress? And it's going to happen. You've got now in Congress this Marjorie Taylor Greene staffer getting into an altercation with Swalwell because Swalwell gets in his face. Clearly, these people don't want to live and work together. How does it make sense then? We can't have people who would defy the very system they've been supporting when it's tribalistically convenient. It should just prove to you that people, they don't agree, and maybe we can't function together this way, and something needs to change. The media is a really good, well, I shouldn't say, I was going to say a really good indicator. When you look at Fox News or MSNBC, you can see the disparate realities. When you look at MSNBC and you see their reaction, they're in disbelief. They don't believe it. There was, I'm not sure if it was MSNBC or CNBC, but like this one woman jumps in the lap of another woman and it's like, y'all are weird. I don't know. I think there's an ecosystem of fringe conspiracy media that people, who support Trump believe, but I think that's the exception, not the rule. I think regular people, center right, conservative, moderate, disaffected liberals have been reasonable about this the whole time. I've had tons of Trump supporters, conservatives, come on that Timcast IRL podcast who have gotten the vaccine. And they're like, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I know, whatever. I don't care. And then there are a lot of people who post on forums that they're like very opposed to getting the vaccine, even though Trump's the one who got it done. You then have the left that won't take their mask off, even when the CDC, you know what, man, maybe peaceful divorce is the only thing that's going to happen, because I don't see how we function in this way. I don't think anybody has a real solution other than the tensions between states will continue to escalate. Sanctuary policies will start popping up like two-way immigration, abortion, masks, whatever. And then eventually people are going to explode. Or maybe it just falls apart and disintegrates. But whatever, man. YouTube might ban me for even talking about it. But hey, look, I'm just as confused as everybody else. That's the news. I read it. My opinion is based off of these NewsGuard certified sources, so take it for what it is. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.